Logan, everybody, I'm Roger Hoover. Glad to welcome you back to the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and welcome to this Thursday afternoon edition of Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota. Make sure you check them out online at TuscaloosaToyota.com to put a Toyota in your life. We'll start to go through all of our headlines for today, as we've got a really busy day ahead for Alabama athletics. Of course, busy weekend as well, so we'll go through all of it with our headlines for today, presented by RJ Young. They are the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us this smartboard to go through all of the different headlines for today. We'll be starting with some women's basketball talk. A big night ahead at 6 p.m. tonight at Coleman Coliseum. Alabama against Houston in the third round of the women's NIT. We'll be talking about that right from the beginning with Alabama head coach Kristy Curry. Then we'll hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide football team, Nick Saban, with his comments after yesterday's practice. And then a couple of players will be checking in with us as well. We'll hear from Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr. giving their thoughts on football practice so far. And then to close out the show, we'll be hearing from the head coach of the Alabama Gymnastics team, Dana Duckworth, as Alabama finished second at the SEC Championships, now starting to look ahead to the NCAA Regionals coming up at the end of the month. Going through our headlines for today, the Crimson Tide women's basketball team had a solid win on Monday night down in New Orleans. 81-77 was the final score in that thrilling victory, as Alabama's had two close games so far in the women's NIT, winning at Troy, winning at Tulane. Now the Crimson Tide are home against Houston coming up tonight at 6 p.m. We'll have radio coverage start at 5:55 across the network, and also here on our Facebook page, where you may be watching the show right now on the CTSN Facebook page, we will have a courtside cam, so you'll be able to listen to the entire radio broadcast and kind of watch me as I call it, but it's more about just listening to the game. Some will be coming up later tonight here on our Facebook page. Crimson Tide earlier this season had a good win, a 10-point victory against the Houston Cougars on December 3rd, as Houston has 18 wins on the year. And you know, Alabama just closed out a tight game against Tulane on Monday. It was Houston that defeated Tulane in the AAC tournament just 2 weeks ago. So that gives you an idea of how good the Houston Cougars are. The winner will advance to the WNIT quarterfinals coming up later this weekend. Could be Sunday, could be Monday, it could be Tuscaloosa, could be South Dakota for all we know, as the winner will take on the winner of Drake versus South Dakota State. So we'll still have all that information for you on our social media channels and RollTide.com. Let's talk some Alabama softball for a moment. The Crimson Tide softball team this past weekend won the first two games against the Kentucky Wildcats before Kentucky did claim a Sunday win against Alabama. Crimson Tide bounced back in really fine fashion on Wednesday night, defeating the UAB Blazers 8-1 in Birmingham. Now this weekend, the Crimson Tide will be at South Carolina. Games at Friday at 5 p.m. Central, Saturday 1, and Sunday as well at 12 p.m. So that's what's ahead for softball. The baseball team last weekend, kind of the reverse of the softball team, lost the Friday and Saturday games to the 9th-ranked Florida Gators, but then came back and had a great comeback victory late on Sunday. Zane Denton had the walk-off RBI single after he homered in the 8th inning. A great day for Alabama to earn a victory against Florida to close out that series. And on Wednesday night, also the Crimson Tide were in Birmingham to take on UAB at Regents Field, and it was the Blazers just pulling it out 5-4, another tight midweek loss for the Crimson Tide. Now this weekend, the Crimson Tide hit the road to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, the team that won the national championship last season. They've been up and down so far this season, and just like Alabama, 1-2 in SEC play. So this is a really critical series early in conference action to kind of determine where these programs are headed, Alabama and Mississippi State. Can't wait to be back at Dudy Noble Field. The game times are listed below: Friday at 6, Saturday and Sunday to close out the weekend at 2 p.m. And some final headlines for today in gymnastics. We are seeing some great performances all season long. We have seen them from Adams, Blanco, Doggett, all named to the All-SEC team, so we love that for Dana Duckworth's gymnastics team, as well as Lily Hudson being named to the SEC All-Freshman team. Good honors there. And then swimming and diving wrapping up their season at the NCAA Championships in Atlanta. Congratulations to Margot Gear and the swimming and diving program for a strong finish there. More details on RollTide.com, but the women's team finished 4th. Also, the diving team made it to the podium as well. So really good performances by Alabama swimming and diving. Tonight, though, Alabama against Houston and the women's NIT. A great opportunity for the Crimson Tide, as Alabama has made it back to the round of 16 in this tournament, something they've now done 3 times under the direction of head coach Kristy Curry, and she joins us to kick off this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota. Getting ready for a game on March 24th, and we're still playing basketball here in Alabama. How's everything going, Roll Tide?
It's going great. Thank you. Roll Tide.
Really excited that the Crimson Tide are heading home for the Thursday night matchup with Houston in the round of 16 in the women's NIT. But let's talk about the victories we've seen so far from this group. At Troy last Thursday and then against Tulane on Monday night. What's been the winning edge for the Crimson Tide?
Just a lot of grit, toughness. Our kids have really stayed together. We've been in a really couple of tough road environments. Troy and Tulane had great crowd, and we were fortunate to make some plays down the stretch. Really, really proud of our kids, and just a lot of decision making and plays on both sides of the ball that really made the difference for us.
And in both of those games, it seems like rebounding was a big factor for the Crimson Tide, as well as just the defensive toughness. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think our league has prepared us. It's such a rebounding league. We obviously have a few that we wish we hadn't give up in those two games, but certainly our kids have shown a lot of toughness, a lot of fundamental, rebounding with our box outs. Our kids have done a really good job of taking pride in defending the glass. It's going to be something against Houston that's going to really be critical to our success as well. So again, I think the SEC just prepares you for that type of physicality on the glass and athleticism, and really been proud of how our kids have responded. We got to continue though, got to continue to improve and clean up at all five spots. Your guards have to rebound in March to be successful. And I think that's one of the biggest keys that's going to be really important against Houston. Our perimeter have to rebound.
And then free throw shooting is something you guys work on all the time throughout the season to climb the ladder, and it really paid off, it seemed like, and especially in crunch time against Tulane. Just how impressed were you by that performance by Alabama at the line when you had to make free throws?
Well, our goal is always to make more than our opponents shoot. We were fortunate to make 24. I think they went to the line 19 times, but to be 24 or 27 in that environment, and just, I think making free throws is toughness. Our kids showed a lot of toughness there, just getting to the line and converting.
And then with your offense as well, at times there have been a couple of droughts in scoring or some field goals not going in, but your shooters always return to their touch, whether it's Brittany Davis or Hannah Barber, Megan Abrams. How important is that for them to be able to break out of a mini slump during the game?
Well, it's important. We just tell them to keep shooting. I think it's all in our response. It's all in our body language back to them. It's a credit to our kids, though. I mean, they spend a lot of time. And, when you put the work in, you have to know your shot's going to fall. You just keep shooting it. Make sure they're good shots. Make sure they're rhythm shots. Hannah hit a couple of big threes for us. Mingo did as well. I mean, she's probably the most improved three-point shooter on our roster. And what Meg's doing and Brittany's doing. But it's just the confidence to take good shots and continue to shoot even when they're not falling. And we've been fortunate to get some critical makes.
How good was it to see Kyla Wade Warren back on the floor on Monday night?
It was great. She's been out for a solid 3 weeks. It's going to take a minute for her to get back in the flow, the pace, the conditioning. So it's great to see her. It gives us another body at the five. We obviously, got in some foul trouble at Tulane. And I thought that, those 3 5s really tried to step up and help us out. So it was good to get that rotation going again.
Well, when we last talked, we were getting ready to come home back to Tuscaloosa for this Thursday night matchup with the Houston Cougars. And now you have the opportunity to be at home inside Coleman Coliseum again. Just what kind of crowd do you want to see on Thursday night in Tuscaloosa?
Well, we need everybody to grab everybody they know, all their friends and family, and come out and support us. The women's NIT is based off attendance. You continue to host if you continue to draw. $5 tickets, be a fun Thursday night activity, 6 o'clock. We really need everybody in town behind this team. They've worked really hard to continue to be playing. I think we're maybe one of 2 teams in the state of Alabama that are still playing. So let's take a lot of pride and get behind this team. We really need everybody to step up on Thursday night attendance wise.
And it is a really good matchup. This has been a tough draw for Alabama all throughout the women's NIT with Troy and Tulane, and now a Houston team that you did face earlier in the season. What can you tell us about the Cougars?
Well, I mean, they have a dynamic guard in Lola Blair. I mean, she's really special. They have great athleticism at every spot. Tierra Young and LSU transfer. We have our hands full, Roger. What we did in earlier in the preseason has no bearing on tomorrow. They're a really good team, really well coached. I think the thing with Houston, they just beat Tulane in the conference tournament. So if we needed anybody to understand how good they are, and you see what Tulane took us to the wire the other night. So it's going to be a great matchup for us. We're going to have to be fundamentally sound and disciplined defensively and rebound the ball and really make sure that we take care of the basketball. You can't have can't have live ball turnovers. So second chance points on the boards and live ball turnovers, we need to do a great job with that.
How much fun is this basketball team having right now? And are they staying in the moment like you like them to between each round?
They really are. And to see their chemistry and their togetherness, disappointed, a couple weeks ago, we didn't make the tournament, but how are you going to respond? And this team all year long has responded as good as any team I've had through adversity. I'm really proud of who they're trying to be. And I think this is going to be a great vault, really jumpstart us into next season. We're excited.
Well, we're certainly excited for Thursday night, the Crimson Tide against the Houston Cougars. Again, $5 tickets. Come see Alabama at Coleman Coliseum. Coach, just thank you so much for joining us here on Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota. We can't wait to see your basketball team return to the floor. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Thank you.
Big Roll Tide to Coach Curry and the Crimson Tide women's basketball team. Again, home tonight, 6 o'clock. Tickets available at rolltide.com for only $5. Students will be getting pizza as they come in. We really look forward to a great home atmosphere for Alabama against Houston in the third round of the women's NIT. Alabama trying to advance for the quarterfinals of this tournament for the first time since 2018. Just Alabama under Coach Curry has always had a good run in this tournament. Hopefully we'll keep it going tonight against Houston at 6 p.m. And of course, we'll have radio and Facebook live streaming available of the game here on the network. Switching gears now, the Alabama football team is back to work this week. It was an interesting practice schedule for the Crimson Tide. They always have a practice the Friday right before spring break, and we got to hear from Coach Saban then. Of course, last week was spring break, and then the Crimson Tide returned to the practice fields this week here in Tuscaloosa, gearing up for A-Day coming up, the Golden Flake A-Day game coming up on April 16th at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And last night it was Coach Saban meeting with the media, giving some updates on how the Crimson Tide team is doing as they make the return back from spring break to the practice fields. And here's Coach's checklist for Wednesday night.
This is our third practice today, first practice in pads. And I was really pleased, kind of an unusual schedule this year to, have one practice, then have spring break, then come back and have one practice, after 9 days off or whatever. But I thought the players responded to it pretty well. Monday wasn't great. But today, first day in pads, I think was a lot better. And one of the reasons that we like to practice this way is so that we're practicing kind of every other day and only have back-to-backs on Friday and Saturday. When the players don't have school on Saturday, you got a little bit more time to meet with them so that we can actually make corrections from the film on the day off, which is tomorrow, and then do just install and on the next practice, which in this case would be Friday. So that's really for teaching purposes with the players. I think the effort, I think the attitude has, been good. And, the key to the drill in spring practice is to be able to develop young players. And, that's one of the reasons that we want to, practice the way we practice. But we got a long way to go in a lot of areas. We got a long way to go with each and every player has, self-assess as to where they are and what they have to do to improve. That's what's going to help them get better if they can self-assess, and then they'll be more positive about taking coaching and correction, which will, certainly enhance their chances of improving. So, we no different injuries or anything like that. So we're kind of got the same guys in, same guys out. And most of the guys that are out are probably going to be out for most of the spring. Oh, he has really been a very good addition, to our team. He's got great speed. He's really a good receiver, good third down back. He's got great vision. He's got really good burst out of a cut. I'm really, really impressed with what he's been able to do. He's smart. He's picked up things. He's an experienced player. So, he really does a good job of understanding what we're trying to do and how to do it, and that's what experienced players can do. So he's done a really, really good job. Jermaine Burton has done a really good job. He's been a real positive addition to the receiver corps. He's got quickness, he's got speed, he's got really good hands, he runs good routes, and again, a little more experience, a little more maturity. Really, helps these guys learn and understand how to do things and understand the importance of doing little things right. Because they've played in games and they played against good competition. So, he has really done an outstanding job in the 3 practices that we've had so far.
Good to hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, but we also wanted you to hear from a couple of players that are returning to this year's Alabama football team. Of course, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, quarterback Bryce Young, as well as the leader of the defense, and who knows, maybe this year's Heisman Trophy winner, Will Anderson Jr. They had an opportunity to speak with the media on Monday, so we'll have a special edition of a player's checklist with Bryce Young and Will Anderson Jr.
Spring break was great. I went back home, back to California. People I work with that I've been throwing with for a while are back there, so got to get some work in with them. Some other guys I used to train with, so it was good to recharge for a week, and now we're back to work. It took a little bit. Anytime, obviously something as national championship, that's something you dream of, something you work for, and when it doesn't go your way, it hurts. It hurts a lot, and for me it was kind of trying to transition from just the emotions of the game, the immediate emotions, to the anger you feel at yourself, and you look back and wish you could have had plays back, moments back, and then you kind of have to snap out of that and then transition into, okay, it is what it is. You can't time travel, so what am I going to do to improve, to get better, to learn from those mistakes? So it's really been the process of turning that page for me, and not looking at it as you want it back, but all right, I did this, that wasn't successful, what can I do to grow? And this is exactly what spring practice is for, is an opportunity for everyone on the team to get better, evaluate what they did last year and see what they can improve on. And there's a lot of new guys, a lot of new pieces, but when you go to a school like this, that's what you expect. There's always constant movement, people that are going to step into new roles, but there's a lot of guys that, even though maybe I guess the public didn't get to see play as much last year, those are guys that I still see working day in and day out last year behind the scenes, and guys that have done a lot of work to put themselves in an opportunity to take advantage of these circumstances. Then there's the freshmen and the new guys that have come in, and it's really exciting to get to see them work, learn about them, strengths, weaknesses, just really see how they take to the offense. So spring is there's always a lot of shuffling, there's always a lot of adjustments. So I think for everyone on the team, it's a great time for us to try to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, kind of build that chemistry and learn together and grow together.
One of the biggest things that I think we came to agreement about when we all met was just everybody being bought in, everybody being committed. Nobody's looking to take the short route out. We know what we did last year. We know we have to work on, so everybody just be bought in and committed to what we have to do. I think we're capable of being better than we were last year. I think towards the end we started to gel a little bit more, and I think we just want to roll that over in the spring. And I think that's one of the biggest things: just keep gelling, keep molding together, everybody playing together, everybody playing fast and physical. The personality of this defense is just to be mean, play fast, hit people in the mouth, stop the run, get them on third down situations so we can get off the field.
Good to hear from Bryce Young and Will Anderson Jr. as spring practice is underway in week number 2. Upcoming after this, we'll have 3 more weeks for Alabama to get ready for, again, the Golden Flake A-Day game coming up on April 16th inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. We'll be having more football content coming up in the next few weeks, getting you ready for A-Day here on Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota. Before we close things out on the show today, we want to go back to Monday night. Hey Coach, presented by Alpha Insurance, as Chris Stewart was hosting from Baumhauer's Victory Grill here in Tuscaloosa, and he had an opportunity to visit in person with the gymnastics coach here at the University of Alabama, Dana Duckworth, talking all things SEC championships for Alabama with an eye on what's ahead for the Crimson Tide coming up in the NCAA regionals. And just note as you're watching this is before we learned that Alabama would be going to Seattle coming up for the NCAA regionals at the end of the month. But still, Coach Duckworth joins Chris to talk about the SEC championships, where Alabama finished second last Saturday in Birmingham.
How is this possible? 8 years now as a head coach and 27 with the program total?
Chris,
you're only 28 years old. How are you doing at 20? When you were 1 year old, you started working with the program, right?
Maybe 2.
Okay.
But
yeah, we don't want to stretch it.
It's weird when you say 8 years because I feel like it was yesterday when the transition happened.
We're sitting at SEC Media Days in Hoover for football and talking about you being the new gymnastics coach at Alabama.
I know. Just an honor. Every day, it's an honor, to wear the script A as an athlete, right? And then to have multiple roles for many years when I was in corporate America as a volunteer and then an assistant, and being, just an honor to be the head coach and carry the legacy and make new ones and just continue to build. And I and so proud to represent the University of Alabama. And that's what I want from the ladies, that they just love Alabama. And I was laughing because Lexi Graber came back, for her 5th year, and she took that COVID year. And I really said, Lexi, why? She goes, I just love it here. I just don't want to leave. And it's been the best decision she ever made. And that's what you want all of them to feel.
I can't remember if Coach Saban said something similar to this, but when he came to Alabama, I remember hearing it said, whether it was by him or someone else, it's great to embrace your tradition, but you don't want to wallow in it because you're not creating something new. You're not building off of that. You're not resting on what's been done. Tell me about the challenge of not reinventing the wheel, but making the wheel shine even more as you go through the years with what has been the program when you were a student athlete and beyond, the standard in college gymnastics.
Well, it's funny you bring up Coach Saban, because my first conversation with him when I became the head coach was, what advice do you have? And I just asked him, what advice do you have for me? Going from an assistant to a head coach. And he said, well, let me tell you, young lady, you have a much harder job because you are taking over a program that's already at the top. Yeah. I was able to build a program that wasn't there, and I've been able to build it. So you have a harder job. And I didn't really get it when he first said that.
Right.
And I just feel what he meant was, you come in the footsteps of someone, and then you have to make it your own, and you have to build your own coaching staff. You have to build, your own culture, really, because you just don't inherit it and then it just doesn't just continue. You have to create it every year. And what I love about the idea is you have to be sharp, and you have to be paying the rent every day, right?
Sure.
Like it doesn't show up. You got to continue to find ways to grow, bring in great athletes, and continue it. So it's just a journey, and you learn every year how to get better at it, and really who you are as a person, who you are as a coach, and who you are as a program. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Makes great sense. When you were competing as a student athlete early in your coaching career, it was Alabama and Georgia.
Right.
It's Alabama, Georgia, and more, but it's still the SEC where the conversation begins. I know there are other programs around the country that are elite. I say that to say you're coming from the SEC championship meet. You finish second. That's a great, great accomplishment.
It is.
In this league now.
It is. Well, here's the thing. When you win last year, expectations are high. And, of course, if you spend too much energy thinking about the repeat, you aren't focusing on the right things.
Right.
And my mom always says, put your emphasis on the right syllable, honey. Put your emphasis in the right place. And so the SEC conference is the hardest conference in gymnastics. Hands down, it's undebatable. I just feel like every single team is good. Every single team that was at the SEC championship was in the top 21 of the entire country. And the 4 that were in the evening seed with us, everyone was top 6.
Right.
And so it was Florida's night. I'm so proud of Alabama, our gymnast. And what people don't know is here we are warming up on floor, our first event. We aren't 5 minutes into warm-ups. And Sania Mitchell, the spirit of all spirit, a leader on this team, an energizer bunny, ruptures her Achilles 3 feet in front of me. And the pain in her face. And I look at my girls, and I'm like, they were heartbroken because she's like the epitome of hard work. Right. And she is a walk-on that has followed a dream and created a dream for herself. And no one wanted to see that happen. And then you have 2 athletes that have come back from that injury. And it was just like their faces were white. So it was rally together. And 2 things could have happened that night. They could have gone one way and not turned up second in the SEC.
Right.
Or they did what they did, which they fought. And so then when Louisa goes down, last routine of the night, whether we were going to win or lose, it was just heartbreaking. And, update on her. So just a quick update. Sania will have Achilles ruptured surgery, on Wednesday. So please say a prayer for her. And Louisa has an ankle that our athletic staff is going to rehab like the best of them. And we are going to just take it day by day and see what we get. But it's not season ending, thank goodness. And the next piece that's so beautiful is that we have depth. And now these women that have been training week after week, it's time to step up and time to step in. And that's what's so beautiful about this team If you would have been at the SEC championship and you saw one of our athletes that hit their routine on bars that's been struggling a little bit, and you saw the camaraderie of that group of women, I mean, the coaches are jumping, the girls are jumping. There's an energy and a love, because the neat thing about Team 48 is their love for each other. They do things outside of the gym together. They hang out when they don't have to. They are as happy for the person next to them as they would be for themselves. Every single class is contributing. 6 seniors, and everyone has competed this year. 4 juniors, and everyone has competed this year. 3 sophomores and, 3 freshmen. And you're having 6, 7, 8 routines come out of those 2 classes. And I'm just so proud of the fight. So the whole theme this year has been TKO, which I told the girls, that means technical knockout. They're like, no, Dana, we're going to be total knockouts.
There we go.
I'm like, well, you already are. I think you're all beautiful. But the whole concept of total knockout is just, we compete every day. We will, nothing's going to be handed to us. And what I loved kind of ties into what you asked earlier. We went in the SEC championship, and I told those ladies, we've earned nothing yet. We have to go out, and every minute of every day today, you fight to the end. Don't give up, no matter what. So then you have your one athlete go down, and they fought. And we did good on floor. We went over to vault. We did good on vault, but I feel like they learned a little bit. We did huge vaults, Chris. Right. So you could definitely tell, like, the adrenaline and being on podium made a difference. But then we went over to bars and beam, and lights out. It's like they finally got comfortable, and they're like, we have nothing to lose. Right. And just go after it. And I feel like every week this team has been building. And every lesson's been learned is preparing us for postseason.
Fantastic. I just want to know if your shoulder is sore from the cartwheel into the softball first pitch that you threw over the weekend.
Well, I had some great coaching from the softball team, and that was so much fun. They didn't teach you the cartwheel. The cartwheel I had.
I figured you did.
The turn to the rotation, that was Ryan. She helped me there.
Good
Montana
deal.
gave me a few pointers, as well as my catcher. It was good. It was really fun.
You looked like you had a good time.
I did. I just, I told the girls, I said, rinse, repeat, start over, reset, move on. Absolutely.
So let's talk about your squad, because you don't want to just rinse, repeat. You want to be even better. And you had a great weekend with the SEC, as we talked about. But you'll find out tomorrow where you're going to go for the NCAA regionals. And is there a preference?
Well, there's 4 locations, and right now when you start to look at the brackets, you can kind of get an idea of what the competition committee could do. So I feel like Oklahoma and Auburn are probably not going to be 2 places that we go, and NC State and Washington in Seattle are probably the 2 places that we're heading. I am planning for the farthest place. I think that we have had great success in Seattle before, and the thing about this is, SEC championships it's the bling meet. It's the bragging right meet, but it doesn't qualify you to anything. Quite frankly, the regional championship is the only way to the national championship, and it's the most important meet of the year. But at the same time, what we've kind of presented it as, it's just a meet. You got to just do what you do every day. Our girls are confident because they're prepared, and it's a different format this year, Chris. So we'll fly out, and we'll have what's called a look-through day, where you just visualize on Wednesday. All you do is go in the arena and visualize. Thursday, we will compete. We will either be in the afternoon session around 1 o'clock, I guess, Pacific Standard Time, or Eastern Standard Time, depending where we go, or the 7 o'clock session. And again, we'll find that out tomorrow. And then you have a day off. So we have a rest day on Friday, and then we compete on Saturday, and the evening session starts at 5 p.m. or 7 p.m., depending on where we go.
Sure.
And so I'm looking forward to this format because, one, it's new, and we were able to kind of rehearse it this season when we had senior night Friday off and elevate the stage on Sunday, and we rocked it. We had 198 2 days in a row with us 48 hours apart, and I think that gave the ladies a bunch of confidence too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So don't know who's going to be there yet, but it's going to be Utah and Alabama as the top 2 seeds.
We always enjoy catching up with Coach Duckworth. Great conversation between her and Chris Stewart on last Monday's Hey Coach, presented by Alpha Insurance. And speaking of Hey Coach, it's coming back this upcoming Monday night at Baumhauer's. That's what's going to close out our CTSN schedule. Let's take a look at what's on tap here this weekend across the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Starting with tonight, you've already heard me talk about it right from the jump. Women's basketball on the WNIT against Houston, 6 p.m. tip-off radio coverage, 5 until 6 coming up for that. And of course, we'll have the booth cam available here on our Facebook page as well as some other social media outlets. So 6 o'clock, Alabama against Houston. Looking forward to that. And then the baseball and softball teams both on the road this weekend away from Tuscaloosa. The softball team will be in Columbia, South Carolina, taking on the Gamecocks, 5 o'clock on Friday, 1 p.m. on Saturday, and then 12 o'clock noon Central Time on Sunday. Then the baseball team gearing up for LSU, 6 o'clock and then 2 o'clock. The next two games following that on Saturday and Sunday, as the baseball team will be against Mississippi State coming up on the weekend against Mississippi State in Starkville, 6 o'clock, and then 2 o'clock for both Saturday and Sunday. And then, hey, Coach, like we mentioned, that rounds out the schedule for this week and also start our next week of preparations for Alabama athletics. And who knows, maybe the women's NIT can get mixed in there on Sunday or Monday as well. Just stay tuned to our social media outlets for the latest on what's ahead for the Crimson Tide. That is going to wrap up this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by Tuscaloosa Toyota. I want to say a special thank you to Kristy Curry for joining us, as well as Coach Duckworth's conversation with Chris Stewart, as well as hearing from football players Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr., and the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban. Special thanks as well to Ethan Kerriman, our Facebook Live producer, for putting all of this together. Thanks to all of you for watching. And again, I strongly urge all of you to join us tonight, Coleman Coliseum, 6 p.m. tip-off against Houston. Tickets are just $5. If you can't make it, we will have you covered on the radio as well as our Facebook Live page. But really looking forward to Alabama against Houston in the women's NIT tonight in Tuscaloosa. For everyone with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover saying thank you again for watching. Good afternoon, and roll Tide.